Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to look at an introduction to sine, cos, and tan. If you've completed the previous functions videos, today's lesson will be a lot easier for you. So for this lesson, very important, set your calculator to degree mode. So we're going to look at the unit circle on the Cartesian plane, right? So x, y like that. And we have a circle with radius 1. And so we're defining the angle from the positive axis of x going counterclockwise like that and up until this line, and that's a theta. That's an angle. Between here and there like that is an angle theta. And every point on the circle has an x component and a y component. So let's look at this now. At angle theta, the x value, we call it cos of theta. And the y value, we call it sine of theta. And so we define another one called tan of theta to be sine over cos, right? Y over x, and that is the slope. So tan of theta is the slope of that line like that. And so sine, cos, and tan are functions. So we say sine of theta, cosine of theta, or cos of theta, and tangent of theta, tan of theta, like that. So an example here is if we're going sine of 30, you punch that in your calculator and you'll get 0.5. And what this means is that at angle 30 degrees like that, the y value is 0.5. Okay, so that's what sine of 30 equals 0.5 means. And so right now we're going to practice calculating sine, cos, and tan values. We're going to practice using our calculator. So this is very important that you practice it in the practice problems. So example 1, calculate to 4 decimal places. So I get my calculator out and I go cos of 10 equals, and it gives me this value here, a couple extra decimals, and we only want to 4 decimal places, so 9848, like that. Sine of 40, you punch in your calculator, and this is what I get, this big value like that. And we want to 4 decimal places, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So I notice 7, 8, so this is going to be 2, 8, like that, right? You've probably seen this in grade 8 or grade 7, that this is how you get to 4 decimal places. So calculator, tan of 15 gives 0.2679, cos of 90 gives 0, sine of 90 gives 1, cos of 23 gives 0.9205, tan of 45 gives 1. And so now we're going to do some practice. And this is important because you want to get to know your calculator. All calculators are different. Some of them you go 5 and then press the button cos. Some calculators you write cos of 5, enter. So it's different for everyone. So go ahead and calculate to 4 decimal places right here. So go ahead and pause the video and answer that. Okay, so we calculate it. So here's an example of the first one. Punch in cos of 5, you get this here like that. And so you see 619 like that. And so we look at the 1, because the next value is greater than 5 or equal to, we make this one a 2. So 0.9962 like that. Okay, and so these are the values when you punch it in your calculator. Go ahead and pause the video and check if that is indeed the same values that you got. Okay, moving on. Now what can happen is example 2, determine the angle value to 2 decimal places. So what we just did previously was cos of 30 gives something. Now we have cos of an angle gives 0.423, and we want to find out what angle gives 0.423 like that. And so what we're going to do is apply the inverse of cos to both sides. So you can go cos inverse of this and cos inverse of that. Cos inverse is another function. And it has the property that when you're doing cos inverse of cos, they cancel out like that. And so what's left is theta equals cos inverse of 0.423. And this is something that you calculate in your calculator. And usually it's like shift cos gives you cos inverse. Okay, so you want to look at your calculator and perform that just to test it out. Make sure your calculator is working. Cos inverse of 0.423. And it should give you 64.96. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and check your calculator and make sure that you can do that. Okay, moving on. So here's another example. B sine of theta equals 0.6732. We are going to apply cos inverse to both sides so that it cancels the sign here. So we have theta on its own equals sine inverse of this, which gives 42.31. Okay, C, tan of theta equals 1.7321. Apply tan inverse to both sides. Theta equals tan inverse of this, and so theta is 60 degrees. And so this is something I'd like for you to ask your teacher. Do you have to show all the steps, or is this okay? For some teachers, this is just fine, but some teachers, they want to see this extra step. So go ahead and ask your teacher which they prefer to see on a test. Okay, other example, D, cos of theta equals this, cos inverse to both sides, theta equals 15.57. Okay, so what we're seeing right now, we're going to be using this in future lessons. So the whole point of this lesson is for you to practice these skills because you're going to use them in future lessons. So practice number 2, determine the angle value to 2 decimal places. So all the way from A to H, go ahead and pause the video and answer that. Okay, we're back. Can it all fit? Yes, it can. Sine of theta, 0.4421. Sine inverse to both sides, 26.24. Cos theta, cos inverse to both sides, theta equals 62.5. Tan inverse to both sides, theta equals 50.98. Sine inverse to both sides, theta equals 75.84. Cos inverse to both sides, theta equals 89.93. Sine inverse on both sides, theta equals 53.13. Tan inverse to both sides, theta equals 54.74. Cos inverse to both sides, theta equals 60. And that's it. It's that easy. I'll see you guys in the next video.